Welcome back, fellow book lovers, to a realm where the lines between black and white blur into shades of morally gray. I'm Brie, and I'm joined by only one of my partners in crime today, Maggie.
We are here to talk about House of Flame and Shadow, but Lauren still hasn't finished it, so she is avoiding us because she doesn't want spoilers.
For sure.
But we'll have like a more when she's done, we're going to talk about it again. Don't there. This is not going to be our final thing about it, but we just have to talk about it somewhere. So
Here
here
we
we
are. Yeah, we just have to get it out because I'm ready to combust.
are. Just have so many feelings about this book,
Mhm.
and there's just so much to unpack in this. Like I feel like okay, let's just read. Did you like it?
Yes, I did like it. I thought it was very good. I feel like it was maybe a little long in some parts. Part one, I think, sort of got drug out a little bit. But part two and three, phenomenal.
Mm,
Chef's
so
kiss.
good.
Very good. What did you think,
Like
Maggie?
I definitely don't get me wrong, there's things I maybe didn't love about this book, but I'm like, is it that I didn't love it or is it that I just wanted something different?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you feel like I wish I could be like this super theories girl, but I think I just honestly picked this up and I was like, whatever Sarah says is good with me. Like I
Yeah, I
it just
will I will say that I'm not typically totally a theories person. I feel like, we all sometimes will have things that we like and you sort of will guess based off of other things. And
mhm,
especially, now that we knew coming from Crescent City 2 that there was going to be this overlap and that, Reese and all of the gang were at the very end of the book. And so it really just like sent everybody into this downward spiral, and I
mhm,
think it got hyped up too much by fans because I don't think it was Sarah.
mhm.
I think it was the fans
No.
that really, really hyped it up that like it was going to be this crazy thing, and then it wasn't. And I think it set people up for disappointment because they were expecting this really, really big crossover.
Like they were going to come save the day with Bryce.
That like they were going to be Bryce was going to be with everyone and everyone was going to be with Bryce, and that maybe they would come back over to Midgard and like all of that, and that didn't happen. Um
Mhm.
so I just yeah, like it was really
I
great and
like
I'm
to
happy with it,
yeah.
but at the same time like reading it I was like, that's it? That's all we get? We're done? She's going back? Are you
Right, like
serious?
some time in the tunnels. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think like because Lauren and I had talked about it too, and I had said like way like way far back that like she would be like, oh, I think like the Valkyrie are gonna come in and Nesta and Gwen, they're gonna come save the day in Midgard. Like they're gonna show up on Pegasus's and come and be like, here, Bryce, here's your own Jelly Jubilee. And that didn't happen. But I was like, I just don't think it's gonna be this huge crossover. And I was like, they're separate entity books. Like I know that we're obviously like all, not all, but like most Sarah J Maas fans read all of her series, every single one of them. They are like we all have all these ties and stuff, and I think like when you look for the ties, there's definitely like little things throughout all the series that like kind of like loop things together.
Mhm.
But I really like they're all supposed to be separate series. Like someone should be able to pick up book 6 in Akatar and be like, no, they didn't have to read Crescent City to enjoy that book. So I really thought like we're gonna get like little bits, but I didn't think it was gonna be this huge like melding of books coming together and saving the day together because it's all separate things.
Yeah.
So like to me the crossover was kind of like the amount that I was expecting, and then obviously like with more talk I was like, oh, that would be so cool, that would be so neat, it would add so much to this. But I kind of still in the back of my head was like, they're separate series. Like yes, they
Mhm.
have information that crosses over and characters who cross over, but I did not think they would be like integral to the plot.
Yeah.
And that was what happened. I mean, like they obviously like, it was good information that Bryce got from Prithian, but I never really thought that like they were going to show up and fight alongside her.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that threw me for a loop in part 1 was that everybody was so standoffish, which
Mhm.
I don't feel like it was like that at the very end of the book, that obviously Asriel is very defensive, as is like his nature. So it totally makes sense that he
Mhm.
sees this random thing that showed up on their lawn and is like, "What the fuck is happening?" and takes her inside. But Feyre is chill. Reese is so chill.
Mhm.
They're kind of just talking. Amren's the only one who knows the language, so is being able to communicate. But it's not like they grabbed her immediately and took her down to the dungeon like she was in the house. And it was
Mhm.
just a little more
Well,
relaxed. And then all of a sudden, you come back into it in this book, and she is in the dungeon. It's just Reese, Amren, and Azriel, and everybody is being very standoffish, and you're getting the internal monologue of Bryce talking about how she has to trick them, which I just think is weird because she knows more
mhm.
information than they do. Like, why does
Oh,
she
for
feel the
sure.
need to hide everything from them was sort of weird to me. Like,
I thought so
what
too.
did she think was going to happen? Because she wasn't being very forthcoming with information about the Asteri and what she was doing and how she got there, and was just being really weird about it, which I can get. You don't know them, they don't know you, but you, Bryce, know that you came from this planet originally. You know
Right, you
that.
know, there's like, you literally looked at Reese and said, "You look identical to my brother."
Yeah.
And, like, that was not addressed at all, like, when she
No.
shows them everything, I really thought she could be like, "You look just like my brother. We have common ancestors."
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I felt like. It was so weird that there were things that were not talked about at all that could have
Or
been.
maybe
And
that
it
happened
was,
off page and we just missed it? Like,
I I no, because even when she is he asks her, when Reese asks, he's in her head, and he asks her if he can look through her memories, and she says no, you may not. And he is shocked that she is not shocked, because she has had people speak in her mind before, and he asks, "Are you familiar with this form of communication?" And she said was yes. And like next to it, as in it's inside, her internal monologue, she says, "That's all I'll say of Rune. That's all I'm going to talk about is that." So she's intentionally leaving people, names, details, things
mhm.
out, but it's just kind of
Like, that could have
why?
given you the means for them to trust you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you felt this way. I did not love Bryce as much as I did in, like, the first Crescent City in this book. I felt like she I don't know if it just because it was kind of close to Aelin and our fire-breathing bitch queen, and, like, how Aelin would just, like, hold these plans in her head, and then, like, everyone just kinda had to go along with it. But I felt like Bryce kept doing that, and I was like, "Girl, no." Like,
So I don't feel like I initially sort of felt that way when I was reading it, but then as I was, you know, finishing up the book and was looking for an outlet, because in our little trio here, I finished far before anybody else did and had no one to discuss my very many feelings. And as any sane book reader would do, I turned to the Facebook groups. And a lot of people were commenting that they were very upset and were having trouble getting through the book because of how Bryce was acting, the way that she was talking, the things that she was doing, that it just wasn't quite on par with how she had acted in the first two books.
mhm.
And when I started to think about it and then started sort of paying attention to it, I feel like I got that. And it was really just, I think, overarching throughout the entire book. And I know we're sort of still talking about the beginning, but just overarching that her really, really strong dislike for the Fae,
Mhm.
period. Like, I get it that she has a
Oh, for
very
sure.
complicated history because of her dad, but she was really, really taking it out on everybody. And I think was expecting these Fae to be nasty, and they're not. And
No,
I
right.
feel like, when you're looking at Silver Flames, a lot of people had a bone to pick with Reese because they felt
Right.
like he was kind of a dick in that book. But someone else had sort of, I had seen something else somewhere where someone was mentioning, would you, maybe it was you actually, but would
I
you
think it
yeah,
was.
like, would you have felt this way if it wasn't a book mainly about Nesta? Like, we know how Nesta feels about Reese. Would we have felt
Right, it's
differently?
Nesta's point of
Mhm.
view.
Would we have felt different if it was someone else talking about all of these things happening? Like, the book is it's about her, and she doesn't like him and he doesn't like her, so you sort of get those nasty vibes.
Mhm.
But Reese is not in any sense a nasty, mean, manipulative person. We know that about him.
Right.
And I just, yeah, I think it was getting a little annoying to me when I was going back and tabbing my book and highlighting different pieces and listening to things again, that she was just hung up and very bruised by the
Oh, for
Fae,
sure.
and it was really bleeding into a lot of her decision making. And it was kind of reminiscent of Aelin, of keeping plans in your head and doing all these things, but she just didn't quite execute it. Because
Not in the same way.
Aelin, yeah, she has like her big grand master plan, but it's always still like in favor of everyone. I don't even know how to say that, but I feel
Mhm.
like Bryce was making decisions from as not of a good of place.
She was like, and I think too, maybe I have more, like, for lack of a better word, compassion for Aelin keeping her entire circle out of the loop, because Aelin was alone in this world for so long,
Mhm.
right? Like, Aelin was, she had Sam. She had no one else in her corner for so long. It was Aelin against the world. So it makes sense to me that Aelin kept her plans close to her chest. She truly was like, my thing, I'm gonna do it. This is my thing. You guys are here for like this. Whereas I think when Bryce did it, it came from such like a hateful place, or like you're saying, like this really big bias against all the people in the world. And she really, Bryce was wronged by a lot of people. Like the fact that she was so looked down on for being half human, half fae, and like she watched like the one person who she felt like had no judgment towards her for her lineage be brutally murdered. And so she has a lot of issues too with like the wolves because of Sabine. Like there's so many different things that like I can sit there and understand like Bryce's anger, but when she chooses to keep the people who've never shown her that kind of act out of the loop and is so like flippant towards them, I really had an issue with how she acted. But also, this book is such a short amount of time that like Bryce
Yes.
just needs time.
I was just shocked at towards the end of the book when it's revealed that it's a week. That
Okay, but I have an issue with that. Like, I think that maybe this is a slight plot hole from this because we know she spent several days in Prithian, right? She spent several days trapped by the Autumn King. How is this only a week? I think that maybe that comment is slightly misconstrued because she spent
mm,
at least what 2 nights at the Autumn King's house at minimum. Like she has dinner with him twice, or like she like leaves.
I thought it was only once.
Like there's okay, but then like the next day, like like it's definitely a couple of days. It's not like
Yeah, that's
it.
fair.
This does not happen
So then I
in
wonder
36
if it's
hours.
like uh uh
Maybe a week from when she comes
yes, when she
back.
comes
Like
back.
that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, maybe that. So
But like where she's like, I wasn't the same girl I was a week ago, running from
Rigulus?
Regulus? Regulus. A week ago. And it was like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And that was like the only thing that kind of gave me pause. And I was like, have I missed something? Is this timeline funky? And I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever have an answer to it. Like, I don't know if it was just the way I interpreted it, but I just
Regardless,
was like,
still very quick timeline. Very
so
quick
quick. So like,
turnaround for sure.
well, and Bryce had a lot, like, I don't want to skip ahead. We can come back to
Mm,
this. I was just gonna like her feelings about like Hunt,
mm.
like kind of the comment she made, like where I feel like it was maybe on like the where it rubbed me a little the wrong way, but where like when she's like, you're either with me or you're not kind of thing. And it's like, he just went through so much torture.
Oh my god, I know. And I think she was just lacking empathy because I
Mm-hmm.
think it took her a second to realize that, and as the reader, having watched and listened and read whatever Hunt get tortured, you have his internal monologue of him saying, I can't believe I was so stupid. I can't believe I didn't see this happen. I can't believe that I trusted Celestina and she betrayed us. Like, this has already happened to me once. It happened to me twice. I can't believe we're going to do it a third time. Like, I can't believe it. And so I feel like she
Mm-hmm.
was lacking empathy for him
Mm-hmm.
because
Like I,
he's hundreds of years old and she's
mm-hmm.
not. And
No, right. And
I
like
think she forgets that he went through those things and experienced that and fought in a war and watched all his friends die and is like
and
the
was
lone
enslaved.
survivor almost out of all of these people and really bears a lot of those scars from it. And not that Bryce doesn't, because she does have her own scars, but they're not the
Different
same.
scars.
Hmm.
No.
And it just causes so much of that tension, I think, between them, which I'm sure maybe was a little intentional, but I think it was just hard to read sometimes because it kind of came off as a little just whiny of like,
Mhm.
do it my way, like why aren't you just with
Right. And
me?
like right. And it was like, no, no, no. Give him a chance.
Hmm.
You know, like he's been through the ringer multiple times. And well, like I think it's hard too because we know like when Bryce was in Prithian, obviously it wasn't like a 5-star hotel. They were not treating her with the utmost like welcome to our world. It
Yeah.
was like she spent the time in the cellar. But to like the reader where we know what Bryce went through was not the same horrors that like Rune and Hunt and Baxian went through. And so like for her to be like, we both went through some shit and it's like, no, no, no. No, no, no.
And
It's
I
different.
will say, you know, a little bit of what Bryce went through, somewhat, she fabricated because
Mhm.
part of what she was really, really, really upset and traumatized by was her ancestry. When she finds
Right.
out that for sure she is a descendant of Thea, and she has her
And
two
she's
daughters,
mad at what they
and she's
did.
mad at what happened, and she's upset that they decided that they wanted to be world conquerors too, and that they went and did all of these things, and she is just disgusted that she has relation to them. And I can
Mhm.
understand, but also that was then, this is now. Just because they did that doesn't make you innately a bad person. So like I feel like she was just treating their trauma the same a little bit. I was like, no, no. You learned historical
It's very
facts
different.
standing in a room while he had his guts cut out of him.
He watched his friend's arm get chewed off
Oh my
by his
god.
other friend.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I don't know, like it's hard because I want to give Bryce the benefit of the doubt. Like we know that Bryce is very caring and very compassionate to the people in her life. And I think it was just like this little character shift in this one where we didn't have that same like devotion to her people as we saw with her like love and devotion to Danica. And so when we didn't have that, it was like as the reader and someone who was on Team Bryce, I was like, stop.
I wonder, so I have it tabbed. I just don't know. There's so many tabs. So I don't know if anybody else is a book tabber, highlighter, an annotator. I am not. However, I just felt like there are so many things that happened and so much to unpack that I did decide to highlight and tab this book. And it is very full of tabs. And with 102 chapters, there's just quite a bit of content. So I don't know if I could find it, but I do think it was Sarah's plan for Bryce's character development for this book because Baxian makes a comment to her of, she's just like ripping everyone about how awful the Fae are, how they don't deserve anything. Like they are just the scum of the earth because of how they treat other people. And I get it. And some of them are. However,
Mhm.
Baxian points out, well, your brother is Fae.
Right.
Declan and Flynn are Fae. Are they bad? Is Therian bad? Like all these, is Hunt bad? Like these other people that you care about that are in your life, Ethan, are they bad because they just are Fae? Well, she goes, well, no.
Or shifters or whatever, you
Yeah,
know, and well, now we know that like
yeah.
they're
He's
not
like,
just shifters,
well,
they are kinds of
no,
fake.
they're not. She goes, and to be honest, the Fae that I met in the other world weren't all that bad, also. All right.
Right.
So it's her having to sort of go through these things to sort of reach those conclusions.
Hmm.
But it was just a little frustrating because, again, I just think it was one of those things that maybe drug on a little bit
Hmm.
throughout the story, but um, sort of, I don't know,
Well, and
minor, I
I think it's
guess.
kind of yeah, and I think it's kind of on par with like, you know, there's a lot of criticisms for like Silver Flames and how like Nesta sucks. And like, granted, Nesta is a very complicated emotion. Like very complicated emotional character. And we get to see that kind of redemption of Nesta's character at the end, right? Like it is the very tail end of that book that you see like this like kind of like silver lining of Nesta's character. And like while the reader can sit there and understand Nesta's like struggle and plight and how she got to be how she is throughout that book, and you kind of see her grow, it is like this really great character arc. And like I think maybe Sarah was like, let's make, Bryce as realistic as Nesta was, and how, Nesta resonated with so many people. And where maybe she was like, let's give Bryce, like, she is young and she has this really big bias. So, like, let's have her have that kind of reckoning of like, oh, wait, like maybe how I'm thinking of these people isn't any better than how they treated others.
Yeah.
Like, this kind of like lumping together isn't always conducive to like a realistic viewpoint of a character population.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it took her a second to figure it out, but I think that is just part of, yeah, her growth was her having to come to that realization that
Mhm.
as bad as the Fae are and as awful as the things that they did in the past, and you know, it's sort of that realization of they are how they are because of um, Pelias or Pelias. I'm not quite sure how to say his name, but the general who really dug into how the Asteri did things and really felt that they were better than humans and they were better than the lesser or lower or non-magical in their
Mhm.
worlds. He leaned into that, and that's the one thing that continued, and it was part of the way that the Asteri were able to keep control of all of the worlds for all this time, was to have that sort of hierarchy and that breakdown. And unfortunately, Bryce is one of the only, throughout the majority of the story, characters that we have that are actually that, because
Mhm.
Feyre started as a human and then she gets turned into a high fae very quickly
Mhm.
into our story. So you lose sort of that tension because she went from obviously
She does, yeah.
she was
She
at the
like
bottom and
assimilates very quickly.
she goes back up to the top. So like you lose that sense throughout the story.
Mhm.
And in Throne of Glass, you think that she is, but you
Mhm.
realize, oh, well, she's not. She's not human. She's
Right.
not boring. She's actually all big, huge, mighty, all powerful Aelin,
Right.
Ash River Galfinius. Like, hello. She's not bottom of the totem pole, and she really, all these different things. And even when she was at the very bottom, as in, she didn't have magic or she was just human, she was a fucking badass assassin. So she was the
Yeah.
bottom of the totem
Oh,
pole
for sure.
anyways. So there's just so many things I think for out of our main character women, she is actually truly the bottom because she is a half
Mhm.
breed and they all really, really look down upon her. And I'm sure the humans don't really like it. And the Fae don't really like it, and so she has that complicated history more so than anybody else. So I get it, but also go up just a little bit.
Well, and be nice to your friends.
That too. Yeah, just be nice to your friends. Hunt didn't do anything to you. Be nice.
He
Not
didn't. He's just
not
so
since book one, I should say.
right.
He
We've
has
come a
gotten used
long
to you,
way from it.
for sure. Um,
It's been a minute.
Part one. What did we think about all the things that we learned? Part one.
Okay. Oh, I don't even. Okay.
Part one was just a very big emotional roller coaster because I feel like so many different things come to fruition where you learn so much. You learn
Mhm.
about Thea, you learn about Helena, you learn about Celine, where they came from, and it's just like an info dump.
A huge info dump,
Oh my god.
but not as bad as like the info dump of Crescent City 1. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's because now I have context for these characters, but I
Hmm.
felt like yes, it was a ton of information, but I was able to track all of it.
And it was just the things that she kept saying. Like the book is just highlighted. There are just highlights galore in the first part of this book because of all the information and the things that we learn. Um, I also thought it was very, very interesting. One of the very first things that I was like, oh my gosh, in part one was that this whole time we don't know what language is tattooed on Bryce's back. It's
Right.
just something that Danica apparently had found. It says all through love, all is possible,
Yes.
but it's,
But in another language.
yes, in another language. Well,
It's in,
good old Amryn coming in clutch It's the language that the Book of Breathings is written in.
Do you think it's word marks?
I don't know if it's word marks, but it's the language of the Asteri.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm slightly confused now on what the Asteri are.
Right.
So in
Like,
part one, when Celestine is doing her spiel, or after she does her spiel, well, hold on, we're jumping ahead here, but
hold on. Wait, can I go grab a phone charger
okay, yeah,
really
yeah,
fast?
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm so sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I mean, a computer
Bookmark.
charger. No, you can't come in here. Covered. Here. Look how cute.
Puppy.
Don't look at his crusty eye.
Hey, babe. Carly invited us to go to dinner or to eat dinner at their house this evening. Would you like to do either of those things? Like just me? No, 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 no. No, there is no just me. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Um. But anywho, yeah. So one of the biggest plot just crazies for me was that it is revealed that Bryce's tattoo is in the same language that's written in the Book of Breathings. And in the first Crescent City book, when I believe it's the first one, when Bryce is inside the vault in Griffin Antiquities, there's a book that is on a bottom shelf and it comes out and it is also called the Book of Breathings because
Mm-hmm.
my jaw hit the floor, not my floor hit the jaw. And I was just shocked, and it is not mentioned anywhere. So I feel as though there will still be future crossovers, and it may not
Oh,
necessarily be
for
like
sure.
worlds, but it will for sure be information.
More
Hmm.
information.
There
Yeah, I
has to
agree
be
with
because
that.
there's so much now that we know that the Fae in Midgard are directly related to those in both worlds. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we know who is related. Like it's very evident, obviously, that Bryce
Mm-hmm.
and Rune are. And also, the Bryce is related to the Fae in the Autumn Kingdom. That's why he's called the Autumn King. That when they're talking about the Fae that went with Thea back over into Midgard, that she had the Fire Fae all lined up, ready to follow her. And I was like, oh, huh. So they were assholes back then too.
No, for sure. Well, and like that was another thing that I like kept waiting for. I feel like I had no resolution on who Reese's or not who on who Rune's mom is.
I
Like,
know.
like I know like Lauren is, dead set on that. That
And I have
is
seen
Reese's sister.
several people discuss that. I've seen theories all over the place of people insisting that that is the connection. And I am was never really on board. And I have to say, after this, I'm still not on board. I
Right. We
just
know
don't
that
I don't
like
think so. I just think
well, because
that they live a really long time and it's more of like a doppelganger type situation, that there's not that
like
many
well also like we
generations.
know we have like Helena who's in Crescent City, and then we have Celine who stays in Prithian.
Yeah.
So like those two sisters just got similar genes, right? And that's kind of where I feel like it is like maybe like how he calls more like a very distant cousin. I
Mhm.
That's how I feel like he is
Yeah, like
with
I
like Reese.
especially when they are walking through and they finally make it to the prison and they're about to walk into the chamber and there is the carving of the woman out on the wall and Bryce recognizes her as Celine
Mm-hmm.
and they she when her little I don't know, hologram, whatever she is, pops up, Azriel, the only one who would have known Reese's mom or sister, says that that looks identical to Reese's sister.
Mm-hmm.
That just confirms it to me that they're just two parts of the same
Very,
bloodline. They're just
yeah,
cousins, and I don't think it's the sister. Can you hear my baby?
yeah, just
Just a little bit.
just a little bit.
He's hanging in the living room with his dad. But I think they're just distant cousins. I don't think that they are related. I think it's just a really big stretch for the whole. Oh, we know
Like I
can
get it, I understand
shapeshift, and
it.
we know that it holds the form when they die. And I've seen the whole spiel everywhere, and I just don't agree.
Right, like I just to me like it's like it would be so neat to have like that familial reunion, but I just to me like we know when the portal was last opened and I'm not sold on the Starlight pool getting brought up again. Like to me that was like a one-off romantic thing that happened between Farrah and Tamlin and it was never addressed again. And to me I would love it if it was, but I just don't feel like it is. I just think they have very similar genes.
Yeah, I think it was foreshadowing, just the different kind that we all knew, like a lot more simple, that they are just the cousins, that
Mm-hmm.
they
Like
have
a far
relation to
fetched cousin.
Thea, is all I think it is,
Like they just have
unfortunately.
best court blood. That's just all it is to me.
Yeah. hmm
And I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll be wrong, but like I don't get that.
And I think that can also be backed up because I don't remember which ACOTAR book it is, but, you know, Reese wasn't always, and his family were not always the High Lords of the Night Court.
Mm-hmm.
It was Moore's family. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, I believe, his line became or is more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of how it got taken over. And that's why, he lets Moore's yucky family run Hewn City underneath the mountain and lets everyone believe that that is what the Night Court is like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they get away with Valaris, for all those years and whatever. But um, and that would make sense if his ancestors were from the Dusk Court also when it doesn't exist anymore. That would explain why there was someone else in charge, essentially, of the Night Court,
Right.
and it's not him
Mm-hmm.
or not his family. Um, but yeah, no, I don't. I don't think.
Well, and I think too, like I love the explanation for like the prison being keyed to the like Celine's ancestors, like or predecessors, no descendants, um, and that like that is why like the Night Court High Lord has access to it rather like where it's like it is because he is also of the Dusk Court.
hmm
And I loved
Yeah,
explaining I love that the prison came to be because Celine was trying to right a wrong and was like, we fucked up. Let me go and gather these things and put them all in cells and be like, y'all stay here for a hot minute to try and like right her wrong. And I know Bryce has a
yeah,
lot of like feelings where she's like, it was too little too late. And it's like, well, she learned her lesson. She's trying to make it better. She's trying to make Prithian a safer place for future descendant or
yeah. I totally agree. I think she was looking at it a little bit jaded. That
mm-hmm.
maybe she would feel differently had maybe she not felt how she feels. I don't know. But with that, I wish maybe we would have gotten a little bit more from the prison because I think everybody is really waiting with bated breath to see what is going to happen with the bone carver and how he plays out. And I wish that we would have gotten some for that, especially since we were on the prison, like we were at the prison
Mm-hmm.
for the entire time that Bryce was in Prithian. It was pretty much there, and so it's just such a bummer that that didn't get explained anymore, or like he
I
wasn't brought into
know.
anything. Like I would have been really cool, um, but that's okay. But I do think it is extremely cool. Lauren was right that they do get conquered, but
And
they
there is
are going
something
to get
underneath her.
yes. But like Bryce sort of said it at the end of the book
It's their
when
kill
they
switch.
no 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 that she says it back when she's back in Midgard. that when this is really jumping ahead, and I don't mean to, but it's just to jump backward. When she does everything with Valbara, not Valbara, Avalon,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and she frees the land, that it flourishes. And she wonders that when she killed the Asteri and she did everything she did and took the power back, took Thea's or Celine's piece of the star back, and she absorbed that power, that the prison may be set free and that the island there may be flourishing too.
Oh, for
And so
sure.
I think that will be where we land in the next Akatar book, is around
Mhm.
that,
No, for
and
sure.
learning more about that.
Well, and then I think under Ramiel or Romuel, however you say it, is the Astery store. Like the did I say that weird? Asteri.
Asteri?
They're like hoard of magic, right? Like I think that is what's underneath that peak, um, because we know be making them stores, and we what's left. We know what was underneath the prison, but Bryce harvested it. So I would be so curious to see if it becomes like if it returns to being like an actual court. If she healed the land like she did in Avalon, is it going to become the eighth court again?
Who would rule it? That's the thing, though.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
But and then what are you going to do with all the people who are still in the prison?
No. Oh, I don't know. But will it still be a prison when the land is healed? Like, will they still be held? I don't know.
Ooh, crazy.
To be
Um,
determined.
to be determined.
Anxiously awaiting more information.
Hmm. And we'll float back over to Midgard, and I just was so glad. First off, because we sort of had left off not knowing what was going to happen to Hunt at the end of the book two,
Mm-hmm.
and we open up with him knowing who he is. Thank God, because Lauren really done did scared me
I
when
know.
she was like, "Do we think he has his memories? Do you think they erased them when they put the crown back on his head?" And I said, "Well, I didn't, but I do
I
now."
didn't either.
So I was really, really breathed a sigh of relief when he knows who Bryce is and he knows what he's doing and where he's at and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
thank the Lord, because I was
Scared.
gonna go, yeah, was gonna
I was
go
so scared for them.
nervous. Yeah, that was not a good time for anyone involved.
No, that was horrible. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one, you hurt for Lydia, who is trying so hard to maintain her double agent status, and she is forced to just absolutely brutally torture Rune.
Yeah, and I will say I was a little disappointed with Rune. I wouldn't say
Mm-hmm.
Rune's reaction. I was a little disappointed with him. That I get it, obviously, like what a shock, and I can't imagine like the feelings, but just the automatic jump to pure hatred for
Right.
her,
Like, you're dead to
instead of
me.
feeling more betrayed or confused and demanding things of her. Like I would have accepted that more, and that would have seemed like a more natural, I think, reaction of being like, you need to explain yourself right the fuck now. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
behind. You have done all of these things. You are one of the most cruel and awful people, supposedly, here. What do you mean you are a double agent and that you are Daybright? And like, how can I feel these things? How is what I would have done. And he was just like,
Fuck
fuck
you.
you, I
No,
don't
and I
care.
think like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to, because like we knew, Rune knew that Agent Daybright was high up in the Astery like graces, right? Like the Astery grace. Like she
Mm,
would he knew who he was communicating with was a high ranking person within their network. So like to me, it wasn't like the shock factor was obviously like huge, right? But also it was like, well, we had some insight. Maybe we just like Rune just can't come to terms with like how atrocious she was, but also she had to be that atrocious to get to that position, right? Like they
yeah.
wouldn't have settled for less.
Yeah,
So like
for
she
sure.
was in like
And
a horrible spot.
it was in, unfortunately, their benefit. Like it was all for, well, lack of a better term, I guess, the greater good.
It
For
was.
her to be like that.
But and it was
Um,
also like there definitely was some selfish motivations on her part, right? Like she didn't choose necessarily to do what she did and like work her way up solely for the greater good. It was for the good of the other huge shock in that book of her
mhm,
having kids. And like she did everything she did to protect her children and ensure that
yeah,
she could maintain the good graces of the Ocean Queen for her twin boys' sake.
yeah, and I think that was like another big twist. Not just the children. Obviously, that was a really big shock because there aren't any characters. I think besides Farrah and Reese, I don't think there's any of them in any
Who've had
book that have
kids.
kids.
Mm-mm.
So that was a really big, mature choice, I think,
Mm-hmm.
on Sarah's part, for that. But I think what also really shocked me was how much the Ocean Queen it like knows, how much she
Mm-hmm.
controls, the influence she has. That Lydia is clearly a very capable person, and yes, she was under the Asteri, however, the entire planet was, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that she was so
She had her
under the
finger
thumb,
on the
mhm,
pulse. Yeah, like
mhm,
she knew everything that was happening. And you kind of think of her as being like, a super powerful character and she has a lot of magic, but we really don't have any insight to her, and then
the
all of a
Ocean
sudden
Queen,
we're like, what? Yeah, the Ocean Queen. Like to learn everything that she had in her authority, it was like a total like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then I was shocked and appalled when we go back over to um, Prithian and they find this little cave and they're talking, or after they're done talking to Celine, they fall down in the little cave and what in the fuck is under there? What's in there? In the little sarcophagi? I'm sorry, but
She's
can
kept
someone
her.
say an Asteri? Who? It what? That blew my mind. I am so shocked. Not only that that person, like that she was there, that Asteri was there, Vesperus, I believe is her name,
Mhm.
um, but that Reese had no fucking idea.
I know.
Reese, Mr. Man who knows everything, who's so in tuned, he is the Aelin of that world, where
Oh, a
he has,
hundred percent.
he's got all the plans and the things working in his brain and the ulterior motives and all of this stuff. And you're telling me, Mr. Man didn't know? Shocked. Fucking shocked. And maybe it's because it was the prison and it really had a tight leash and because he wasn't the right family member.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. But goddamn,
No, I was
just
shocked.
literally that group chat of me discovering that I
Panicked.
yeah, pure shock, pure shock. And then it really threw me for a loop too. And then when the Asteri wakes up and she's thinking that it's 15,000 years ago and she's talking like Thea is there and Polias is there and that the swords are there and all these different things and it's like, oh, Miss Ma'am, no,
Those are gone.
yeah, it's been some time. But I also read something that someone, when they were initially reading that, their first thought was that it was maybe Maeve.
I know. Like there were so many things that I was like, okay, calling Bryce a little world walker, and then
Mm-hmm.
the blood being described as ichor, and like,
And just black blood in general. It said Icar, and then it said that black blood leaked, I think, from her mouth or from her throat or
mhm.
something. And I was like, sorry, what?
Well, but Lauren did point out like the only thing that makes her not necessarily think that they're Valg is that they're constantly described as having like a stench.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And then that wasn't used when like even when she was like bleeding, where she was like, but maybe it's just like a similarity. And I was like, but they didn't say that about Maeve. and Lauren was like, but maybe because she was in a Fae body, it was like covered. But we also know that like all the other Asteri have like claimed other bodies, right? Like, is it
Yeah, because I think the difference for some of like the lower Vogue is that they don't have a form and they can't take a form in that world. And Maeve, she's not in another body. She is like molded her body to
it like
fill that, like
adapted?
take that form
Mm-hmm.
because she's just like a black, um, like misty form kind of thing is like what I
Yeah.
feel like she was described as. And like the same thing for the king. And it's only like when you're like at that high, it was like the king and her. I think that was it. Everybody
Okay.
else had to be in another body and they all had the collar, they all had the ring, they had something that
Something
kept
else tying them to it.
mhm,
Well,
to
because then I
that
was
to
thinking,
allow them to be there. And so that would be maybe why, because I don't think the maid was ever described as stinky. I don't think the king was. I don't actually
mm,
even know where the prince is. Yeah, they were, because when Dorian was um, infected or whatever, I guess he had this. Like you could smell that it wasn't necessarily like gross, but you could smell that he was
there was
not
something else
himself.
going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not for the king because nobody knew all that time that the king wasn't the actual king. He was Mr. King
Under
King
control.
from
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, but it really just shook me. There's
I
this
know.
personal sarcophagus, and there's this hysteria of like, who, why
Who? What
did
do you
you do
do?
that?
No, and like, I wish that like I understand. I get why Bryce opened it. I do. She needed information. She really thought that she wasn't going to get it with Azriel and Nesta's help. So she was like, nah, fuck it, guys. Let's open this shit and talk to this girl. Um, but I do wish that like maybe we could have had some insight from like Amarin and she could have been like, yep, that's a Daglin, like kind of like
Yeah.
we could have gotten more information. Um, solely because like we have Amaranth who is well acquainted and like knows so much history because she freaking lived this history where like maybe
Hmm.
that would have been like a benefit, but wistful
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. And I really think it'll come up.
It
It'll
will
come
come
up in
up
the
for
next
sure.
book. So maybe Amron will be able to divulge some more information. Maybe they'll do some more world walking of their own in the next book because of that, I think.
Hmm.
Maybe not necessarily to Midgard, maybe, I don't know. Um, I have no idea.
Maybe
But
we'll
I
see
don't
some
think,
some OG shifter Fae like
yeah.
hmm
Um, I think it was intentional that we didn't get a lot because I think it's
hmm
going to play into other stories that are going to continue. As
hmm
frustrating as it was because we wanted it, I think Bryce got what she needed to.
hmm
But it really did. You're right. Could have been more from Amron, and I think it's going to come into play of all the things that Reese doesn't know because it's pointed out that he did, or he's like, we don't have that history. That's not a thing. There is no history of someone coming over, taking over our world, and sucking our power away. And Emery goes, "Oh, I'm sorry.
wait a
Actually, there
minute.
is. There is." And he's
Hmm.
like, "What?" And then on top of the fact that the prison is just the nature of the prison and why the prison existed and the history of the island itself, and the fact that there was this starborn light hidden in there, this power that
Hmm.
was hidden there, which makes me wonder, could have Reese taken it?
I think
Or
so.
was it
If he had known it was there.
because,
Um,
or maybe more?
but neither,
Because,
but does it
oh
like
no,
if
no, no more
neither of
was,
them are starborn? But like it's
but
interesting
they
because
would have
like
been. They
they
would have
would
been
have been
starborn because she gave up her power and her son never went and got it. And so it did not get continued to pass down through the lines like it did on
right.
Bryce's side.
Okay, you're right. You're right. So
Because the
yeah,
missing piece was Rune. I think Rune, because Rune and Bryce both were starborn, and the third piece that she was missing was Rune's piece, and he gave it to her.
yeah. Mm.
But it just like made me wonder, like, oh my god, like Could you
could someone else
imagine?
have claimed that power? Like what
Yeah.
would have happened?
And
Obviously,
Mr. All Powerful High Lord of all time, if he had even more, oh my
unstoppable.
God, absolutely insane. Um, but I just, yeah, that was one of like the biggest shocks of, just so much information was revealed in that
That's
little,
short, 30
that's such,
chapters or
such a short,
whatever.
yeah,
Such a
so much
short piece. I guess it is like a
information.
third of it, but um
Hmm.
I mean slightly under because it's what 28 chapters out of 102, but
Hmm.
no, like it was so much to take in. I
Yeah,
just
you really actually, we get confirmation that the other Fae or the shifters were originally Fae and that they were more aggressive, that they had all had an animal form,
and they
and
had like elemental
obviously,
like powers.
and obviously that is from Aelin's world, and
Well, and
so
it
that
makes
was
like
really,
the fact that they are Fae, I think it adds such an element to like this hierarchy of their world, like of Midgard, where it's like you guys look down on the shifters, but you're both Fae, just from different worlds.
yeah,
Like
and especially like, oh, and then the other really crazy thing that I was going to lead into is that there's a parasite from the Asteri
uh-huh.
that she's like giving all this information. She's like, oh my god, so Rigelus did it. He actually did what we were trying to do, and there's the parasite in the drop. The No wonder the fucking drop didn't make any sense to me when I was reading this book because it was made up.
It
That
was
they
completely made up.
forced, yeah, they forced it on them, which is crazy. And the fact that once they did not have to do that like Ethan's power, boom, just
Boom.
absolutely elevated. And the fact that, yeah, really, like, on that hierarchy, that they were so low on the totem pole is because they thought that they didn't have magic other than the fact that they could shift, and
Hmm.
that's also not true,
No, for
which is
sure.
crazy.
No, the parasite thing was absolutely wild to me. Like, I just was like, what? And it's like you look at like Bryce or like who gets so much power from when she did the drop at the gate and like, got more power than she was ever destined to have, where it's like, how like exponentially higher could her power have gotten? And like, I look at like Lydia, not, it's going to skip ahead. We can come back to it.
It's okay.
Uh,
Go ahead.
like Lydia and the fact like one loved Lydia's tie-ins with Throne of Glass, the wedding ring of Rowan, the naming her
Wait,
child.
what?
You don't think that, like, she when she gives the ring to her sons and she's like, this is like an ancestor, like an heirloom from my family. It is a gold ring with a ruby, which is Rowan's wedding ring, was a
No, but
ruby.
yes, but it has to be going at these, they're at the same
But
time.
that's what I was thinking, but I was like, how does that work? But she said it was from, I wish I could find it. Okay.
No, no, no. I totally remember exactly what you're talking about. I just didn't even think of Road and Aelin at all.
Well, so like I've been struggling with the timelines because like we know that Silver or that Frost and Starlight lines up with Kingdom of Ash. We know that Crescent City 2 lines up with, like, it's a couple week, I don't even know how long after Silver Flames, but like, it's not that much longer. And
Hmm.
so I don't quite know if that's true, but it's just a little some to think about. And
Yeah,
that
and maybe if
like,
it's not Rowan's, that it's still drawing that connection of
mhm.
them maybe for some reason somewhere else.
Well, and
There was,
Lydia having straight up Aelin Aelin level fire after she
oh
gets
yeah,
her.
hmm,
Oh my god, I
hmm,
was like, beautiful.
which makes me even more angry for Aelin that they took it all
She
away from
lost
her.
her powers. I know. Like
Frickin'
Bryce now
makes me
is super
so upset.
powerful. Lydia has all this power, and I'm like, just let Aelin have it. Like,
Hmm.
it'll always be something that bothers me about Throne of Glass. I just think Aelin is
Yeah.
one of my favorite characters, and
Hmm.
I just wish she could have kept. And obviously, she still is super powerful, even without like that what she gave up. Like, she still has an immense amount of power. But I love that she was the it girl
Hmm.
and had this. But I just
Yeah. And when I was talking to one of our friends, we have a group chat with everybody. I was talking to Casey, and she didn't even draw the connection a little bit, aside from the fire, that Aelin was related to Lydia.
They
And I was
look
like,
alike. They both
that's
are
what I said.
stags.
I was
Like,
like, she has blonde hair. I was like, she looks pretty much just like her. I was like, and on top of the fact, she's a deer shifter. And then
and
when she shifted into her deer form, she says she has a little tuft of hair that looks like a flame right in her between her eyes. And I was like,
and when
you
she
don't
like before
say.
she even gets her like access to her elemental power and like the mass mount,
I already knew
she
that.
shows up as literal fucking fire. That is how
Oh,
in
she
her
goes,
conscience.
I didn't even think about it. Yeah, I just didn't draw it. And I was like, oh, okay. But no, it was I really loved that, and I loved Lydia's redemption arc throughout the entire
Mm-hmm.
story. I love that the sprite Fire Queen is released. The
Mm-hmm.
sprites have their queen back.
I know.
Oh,
No, I
hey, baby
love.
Wahaba, we love you.
I know when she was like, "I saw your fire," and I was like that's just. It was so beautiful, and like
Hmm.
Lydia, I will take no criticisms on her. Like I loved her. I think that she and Rune carried such a big part of the story. And I felt like all that was happening for them was so integral. And I feel like what they did was just like all like the Lydia stuff under the table and how much manipulation she had to do of so many people to get these outcomes that she desired. I loved it. Like
Hmm.
that is what I expected. Like that is Aelin Galathinius behavior. And it makes fucking
Hmm.
sense that
Hmm.
it is because
Hmm.
Lydia knew what strings to pull and when to pull them, much like our girl Aelin. And I feel like because I got to see Lydia just doing shit that she needed to do, it made it that much harder for like Bryce is trying to do it. It just didn't hit the same for me.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think Bryce just stuck to her pain and her history a little bit more than both Aelin and Lydia did, because I think Lydia has every right to be just as hateful and as angry as
Mm-hmm.
Bryce is.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
Or
she's been
like
through
same with
a lot.
Aelin. Aelin, our girl is tired. I mean, she was enslaved.
Oh, yes, oh, sweet baby girl.
Like where I feel like maybe that's why
Ron, I'm just so tired. Oh my god, that was like a knife to the heart when she said
I
that.
know. But like
Um,
I just I loved
yeah, I don't
Lydia
know.
and
Like I
Rune's
just think it was
story.
her hate was a little bit
Her
too
bias
it was a
was
little
too
bit
much for
too
me.
much.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people felt that way.
And
But I think
that's okay.
it also it also goes in with Bryce because Bryce is so sarcastic. She
And she
tries to
really
pretend like
carries.
things don't bother her, and I think
Mhm.
like that like kind of bitchy attitude fits,
It
unfortunately,
does.
as annoying
Yeah.
as it can be.
No, for sure. And we saw it before. Like I know I said like, oh, I wanted the Bryce we had in book one, but it's like ultimately like what do we see Bryce doing in book one? She partied to cope. She
Hmm.
was like sassy to a fault and like use that as like a means to deal with like the loss of Danica and the pack of devils and like definitely Bryce needs some therapy. She needs to learn some better coping mechanisms. I think it was just hard in this book where like everybody's going through some shit and like she still is on her fuck girl attitude.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I don't know if I got enough from Hunt that I would have wanted.
I know I he's just Hunt. You know, he's
I
definitely
know. I
not
sort of
my
feel
favorite.
that way more with this book. I think
He was
I
just a little
actually, speaking of Hunt, I think him and no, they can't. Like, it really like threw me for a loop again. So, like, obviously, we sort of learned about his lineage and his history and
right.
whatever. Actually, he could be because he's an angel from his mom, right?
Hmm.
So, I feel like him and Cassian are related in some way. because
I guess I
when
wouldn't have said Cassian. I would have maybe said, shoot. Now I can't even think of it. Like
the winged
who?
ones, like the
Yeah,
feathered ones,
like
yeah, I don't know.
Perry, whatever.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
have no
wouldn't
idea.
have thought him and Cassian, but I want to hear it. Tell me.
But so okay, so at the very this is jumping way, way, way back to the very end of the book when they go back to get Bryce's parents and they open the gate and they're all sitting in the living room. That's the first time we see Cassian in this book, which I was
Mhm.
shocked because
I
in
know.
part one, when Nesta has the mask on and Azrael is pulling her back from the edge, he's talking about Cassian and he's talking about Cassian like he's off on some mission and he is not there, which
Mhm.
really was like, huh, like made me twist my head a little bit.
Like, like what's going on? Where's our boy
Yeah,
Cassian?
like where is he? Why is Cassian not here? Why was he not involved in this? Where is he? Sort of thing. So then when he showed up at the very end, I was like, oh my god. And Bryce says, here's that must be Nesta's mate, and he looks oddly familiar. Like he feels familiar. And I think it's because of Hunt.
Oh, I mean, I could see it.
And Hunt is with her. Hunt is right
I
there.
know.
But it was she had said, she like made a comment about how Cassian seemed familiar. I'm pretty sure, unless I read it wrong.
Wait, so
But
I'm now like with you saying that again, it's hard without having like tab things in front of me.
I know I don't
I
know if
guess
I
I
have it.
thought it
Let's see
was
if I can
like
find
I
it.
wish I could find it. Yeah, like I wish I could fucking search.
Oh, here. Okay.
Okay. A handsome, vaguely familiar winged male besides them. But I guess I took that as like vaguely familiar from when they met the first time, like when Bryce first landed and they brought her into the house.
Oh,
Like
damn.
I didn't
Okay, I
think
bet
of
you're
it in
right
that
then.
way. Um,
I guess I forgot that Cassian was even there when she first landed. And maybe
mhm.
it's because he's similar to Azrael now that you say that, but I was like,
We got something.
especially because I took it as vaguely familiar because they both have like the long dark hair,
Oh, for
like
sure.
the
No, and
rugged
I
kind of whatever. But
mhm.
maybe I bet you're right. I bet I'm stretching, but I was like, oh my god,
But I think
when I
that's
read
like so
that.
hard with like these books where there's all these tie-ins. Like you are so desperate for like any kind of connections you can draw. Like maybe the ring is not even a connection, and I'm just like, oh my god, Rowan had a ruby ring. It's got to be like a connection
Yeah,
that way. Where that could be like such a big stretch, but I was just desperate for like any kind of tie-in because we knew there was gonna be some. So like maybe I was being like an over eager like analyzer and like looking for connections where there really wasn't one. Like maybe I was seeking them so hard that I like made some.
yeah, and let me tell you, I felt extremely bad. So I was listening to this book mainly via podcast. I was listening to this book mainly via audiobook. And I was driving home from work on Wednesday when I got to the part where Bryce opens up the gate again. They have made it to the Northern Rift, and Bryce is opening up the gate, and everybody again is thinking she's opening up the gate to hell, and
Mhm.
she opens it up to Prithian, and it's inside Nesta's living room. And I screamed out loud when it was Nesta. And
Mhm.
I put in our group chat and was like, oh my gosh, I am just screaming. Because again, I was like thinking it was maybe going to be a little bit more than we got, and they weren't going to shove Randall and Ember through and then shut the door again, but that's okay. That's not the point. But I was felt so awful when Lauren had said, I really hope it's Aelin and that Aelin shows up. And I was like, oh man, you're gonna be you're gonna be
I
disappointed when you get
know.
there. You're gonna be
Well,
disappointed.
for real. Well, and that was like kudos to friggin' Bloomsbury for turning
Mhm.
X-ray off because the
Oh, mhm.
second I had and like the slightest idea, like when she said world walkers, I immediately was like, Aelin, and then I couldn't do it, and I was forced to read to find out what happened, and I couldn't have spoiled it for myself because I was desperate in that moment.
Yeah. There were a couple times that I wish I could have been able to do that. And yeah, it, yeah, there was just because there's so many nuggets, so many pieces and things where you think things are gonna come out and you want to know. It's like, oh well,
Right,
crap.
like I needed to know then and there, not when I got to it at my own pace.
Yeah, I guess any other really big immediate reactions? Anything in particular that
I think
pulled
I'm just
you?
ready for more. Like I think that's what's so
Hmm.
hard about loving series that are like unfinished is I finish
Hmm.
it and I immediately want more.
Hmm.
Like my
I
patience is gone. Like I feel like I waited so long for this book and I'm like, I need more.
I know. I really hope that she has already started on the next ACOTAR book. And it was sort of unclear, I think, when she had done her interviews for the press for House of Flame and Shadow, where the next Crescent City book is on the lineup.
I
I
know.
know ACOTAR is next. We all know ACOTAR is next. Um, and is it the new series? Because we all know that she has her new series coming out. Um, and I couldn't tell, or maybe I just don't remember, if it was going to be her, because she did mention that she was going to be writing a book that she's been thinking about for a while, and it's going to be very gut wrenching
Emotional.
and emotional for her to write. And
Hmm.
so I think that is everyone's hope is that it's going to be Aelin,
I just
which would make sense, I think,
mhm.
in some way, because I didn't know this about Sarah or the series that she started writing basically had the idea for Throne of Glass when she was 16.
Yeah, it was like
So
first
she has
like
lived,
Throne of Glass for so long.
like, she's lived with Aelin for a very, very long time. And so I can see that being the one that has her in her feels to write, to revisit again.
I think
Um,
that would be the one I had like I don't know about you. Like obviously like I love all of her works, but like Throne of Glass was just so emotional for me from start to finish. Like I feel like the emotional investment I had in those characters is just so high. And like
yeah. And I think it's because the stories are, it's so long.
and it's finished, I think too. Like
Yes, but it's seven, 8 books.
mhm.
That's a long time to be with those characters. um, and it being told basically the same way that the whole time because I think a lot of people have take issue with ACOTAR because the first
We,
4 books are all in Feyre's point of view, and then you
right.
switch back to this third person point of view for Silver Flames, and obviously all the other series are all third person. Um, so I think it's just not, and it's just a little harder. Like we have had a lot of time ourselves listening to Aelin and
Yeah.
feeling things for her,
Yes.
and we don't have that quite so much with everybody else except Feyre. I would say because I would say I have a
Right.
very severe emotional connection, just deep attachment to Feyre.
No, and I think that's
I
such a
love
good
her.
point. Like we had so much time. And I think because like Silver Flames does totally switch to Nesta and it's we're even though Kingdom of Ash is multiple point of view, like, we have still other point of views. It's a very different kind of point of view than like a book centered around another character. But I mean, like,
Hmm.
look at us talking about like when we talk about Tower of Dawn, it's my least favorite in that series because I'm just not a big Kale fan.
Yeah. Oh
Like
my
that book
god.
is hard to get through unless you tandem.
Yeah. I again, I sort of disagree just because, but maybe it's because I audiobooked it and so I went through it so much faster. I didn't tandem read. I
So I
read,
didn't either. I didn't either.
I
And
know, but
it
I'm saying
was
I didn't think it was that bad. Is that
oh,
I
I thought it
read
was
the
so
majority of
slow.
Empire of Storms, and then realized it was like, Aemon is on the beach with Maeve, and I was like, I gotta stop. And I was
I
like,
gotta
hold on.
stop.
And so then I
Yeah.
went over to Tower of Dawn and finished that one.
Oh, and
And
then
then
went
went back to
back.
and then finished the last like hour, I think is what it was, of Empire of Storms. Um, but I don't know, like I can see it, like it was probably longer than it needed to be, but
Hmm.
at the same time,
There are a
and
lot of
I don't
loved
know,
characters. Like
yeah,
Nesserin, I
there's a
loved.
lot. Hmm.
No, and maybe I have like a
Hmm.
maybe I need to reread it, and maybe I would like it more.
And I did see someone else talk about that Therian is this series Cable. That cracked me up. Which I was thinking about it last night. I was like laying in bed thinking about it, and I said, you know what? If Therian, in my opinion, if he was not in this story, not one thing would change.
No,
Nothing basically
no.
would be different. Um,
Like
he is
he
just,
is so sullen the whole
yep,
time for
he's just
choices
so
he's.
unimportant.
I know, and I get scared because the next book is House of Many Waters, and I'm like, if it is
Ooh.
a Therian based book, it is going to
Well,
be
maybe hopefully it'll be a redemption. I don't know
like
because we have
Tower of Dawn
We have
was
the Ocean
redemption for
Queen.
Kittle. Hmm.
Yeah, it's like, but we have the Ocean Queen, and the fact that the power grid is no longer a thing, and they're all going back to like old living, and they have to figure out what they're going to do, and they've been meeting with the Ocean Queen on how to get the first light system back up.
Hmm.
I It could be about that. I think like it
Yeah.
could be like they're going to have
Right. Like
some
we
like
have a lot
big
of
major
this world
revolution.
is in for some work because like one, they've never had government that wasn't controlled by the Asteri. Like
Hmm.
when she's like, "Oh, we're going to do a Senate." And it's like, "Bryce, do you even know like how to start that?" Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
but also I think they have a lot of like history and knowledge. I think they do have a lot of knowledge about things
Yeah,
in
but if
like the
this world
books
was always
because
run by the Asteri besides like,
the Fae
for
were, but that doesn't mean the people were, and the books are still there.
that's true. That's true. The books are still there and now Bryce owns them.
Also, hold on, we so skipped over Jessica.
Ah, I cried so much, girl.
I
Like,
wanted okay. Actually, I got a couple thoughts about a couple other things, but we're gonna have to wrap it up here pretty soon because I'm gonna have to start making dinner. Um, but okay, so first, I just have to say, I fucking knew it. I knew the last time we had talked about this book, Lauren was like, I don't care about Ethan. I don't care about the Fendiers. I don't care about the wolves. It's irrelevant. And I was like, I beg to differ. I don't think so. I disagree. I was right. I
yeah.
fucking knew it. I knew that frickin' Ethan was going to be prime. I knew.
Oh, for
I just
sure.
had a gut feeling that that was going to be it. That I knew that that stupid little Fendir, little bitchy wolf, was gonna come into play somehow. And then as
Hmm.
this book starts going, I'm like, he's gonna fucking be prime. Why is he trying to resurrect this stupid wolf? He is going to be prime. Like that is what this is. This is happening. It is happening. And
It
he
is
is like not wanting to
happening.
accept it, and it is happening. And the fact that Jessica opens up to him and now admits that she was a priestess
Hmm.
back in the human world 15,000 years ago, which Lauren was partially right. She wasn't the right priestess, but Lauren had, theorized or had read a theory that she was from Prithian and was the high priestess that dipped things into the cauldron, which is not true, but she was a different priestess. And
Hmm.
protected the books in the libraries in the human world 15,000 years ago, which I thought was crazy
Oh
because
my God, I
no one
love
knows
that.
that about her.
Hmm.
And they all think she's really a witch, and she's not.
She's not a witch. She's not a
She's just
sorceress.
been
She's just
cursed.
eternal.
Mhm. And that was like, oh my god. And I will say, I did not even pick up on the fact that she was cursed and like given eternal life. And like I don't know if that was maybe foreshadowing for the end of the book when
Hmm.
Bryce is dying and is dead, and in order to live, Jessica gives her life over to Bryce
Hmm.
because she has the eternal life to give. Didn't see it coming, and I was like, "My
Did
God,
not see it coming. I know.
no,
Like
what?"
I didn't think Bryce was dead. I feel
Oh,
like
for sure
Sarah
not.
brings
But
everybody back. She wants a happy ending, and that's okay. I love it. I want a happy ending too. But I was like, they're gonna figure something out. And I was like, they're gonna freaking douse
mm-hmm,
her in this new serum. Like I just was like, something
mm-hmm.
has to change. Like we know she's coming back.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't for a second think that it wasn't like she was going to be dead, but I just did not think that it would be the fact that Jessica had was given cursed with this eternal life that she would then be able to give it over to Bryce. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
god, wow.
cried so much. Big tears.
Yeah, yeah. Um, just yeah, overall, just very
So
good
good. So,
plot twists. I think.
mhm.
Um, as annoying as it was at some times, I think it was good character development.
I did. Yeah, I loved the whole. Like, I did enjoy the read. I enjoyed it fully.
Hmm. I think there was good tension between Bryce and Hunt. I think their fights were pretty realistic, where
Hmm.
she is just like wanting him to do what she wants, and he is pushing back a little bit,
Hmm.
and they're fighting, and I think that was pretty realistic.
Oh, for sure.
Um, I still am like it's got to be like Therian as a loose end, and I don't know how to say her name. Like I'm drawing a blank, but his new wife,
Oh,
Lynn's sister,
Satya, Satya.
something like that. Yeah, but that's a loose end. That Therian
Hmm.
and his new wife, his Fae wife, are for sure a loose end. The River Queen is a loose end.
Right,
The
like her
Ocean
running off
Queen.
to go find her ex.
Hmm.
Like, we got some
Hmm.
stuff that needs to
The
be
Viper
solved.
Queen. The Viper Queen almost single handedly basically made Ethan Prime.
I
I
know.
feel like I went back and
Like,
was like when I was reading through it, I was highlighting. I was like, this bitch did this. She did this because throughout the entire book, what is Ethan thinking of? Oh, make my brother proud. Also, hold on, skipped over Hypaxia. What the fuck?
I know the fact that like she is no longer queen of the witches. I was just like, oh my god. And now,
Like that's
like,
another loose end.
what did you think that the Underking was? If he was like a visceral reaction to Ethan and was like, what, like a, what, how did Ethan describe it? Like that they were like, they knew they were enemies.
Was it Ethan or was it something Ethan was holding?
Oh, I thought it was Ethan.
No, I thought it was the bullet
No, because he
that
got that
Ethan was
after.
holding.
Oh, maybe. Girl, I don't know.
No,
Must be.
no, he
I need
didn't.
to reread
Because
already.
they were him and Connor. So Connor and Ethan were out talking. That the what's his face, the Under King, let him talk. He went outside. He's talking with. Um, is it okay? I just got
I
like
don't
a
know.
warning at the top of my thing.
I did too.
Oh, okay. But that Ethan is talking with the Under King. He goes outside. He's talking with Connor, or trying to talk as much as Connor can mime to him. Um, but he he is trying to figure it out and he gives him the bullet, and then when he gives him the bullet, that's when he goes and falls through the archway, I'm pretty sure. And when he's holding it, that's when the Under King is like freaking out.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
material that it was made out of is what was freaking him out, which it
Okay.
was like some black obsidian stuff, which would maybe make sense if he was one of if he was a Vogue and he didn't want to have a collar on and didn't want to be controlled or
Oh.
something. I don't know because I don't know if I.
Wait. Okay, wait. I just found it.
Okay.
Okay, it says, "What are you but some freak alien from another world who capitalized on this one?" Connor was staring at him now, eyes wide, urging him to be quiet, to stand down. But that thing that had awoken in Ethan the moment the parasite had vanished wouldn't go away. It stared down this creature, this thing from his people's home world, and it knew the Underking for what he was, enemy. So Ethan himself
Mm-hmm.
is saying enemy. And then
Mm-hmm.
so Ethan snarl cleaved the mist, bouncing off the temples. Frost curled at his fingertips. Even Connor backed away in surprise. What is that? The Under King said, backing away a step as well toward the temple interior. Ethan peered down at his hands, the ice crusting them. Enemy. The silent death, suffering. Ethan would stand for it no more. Get out of my realm, the Under King said, and Ethan scented his fear, his surprise and dread, like he knew Ethan for the ancient enemy as well.
You're right. Okay, I forgot about that part. Um, I
Like
don't
what
know.
what is it like what's afraid of ice?
I don't know, because I don't think of anything from Throne of Glass that has that reaction. Maeve doesn't have that reaction to
She has it
anybody
to
else in their
fire.
house.
No, for sure.
Oh, yeah, but I don't know.
But
I'm
I,
like,
I
is
like
he a
was
Volg?
such drawing
If
a
anything
whole.
was, if he was a Volg, I would think him more than the Asteri.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I don't know. Because I'm very confused. So at the very beginning, when they're talking about, again, when you find the Asteri under the mountain, and they're talking about the ichor, the black blood, the whatever, the fact that they are draining people to a husk, which is how it's described in Throne of Glass.
Hmm.
Like that, I'm like, oh my god, that they are. And then you get to the end, and I'm like, no, they're not. They're not. They don't behave the same at all. And so I'm not convinced that the Asteri are Volg. I don't know what the fuck they are. And I don't know. Because I then
No,
was thinking that the Volg were from hell. They're not from hell. No, no way.
they're from another world.
Maybe they could be, maybe some other part of hell, because I think, now that I'm thinking about it, um, because the Northern Rift is very, very cold, everybody's bundled up, and the princes are not bundled at all because they're used to the cold because hell is so cold.
Right.
And the
Well, and
Volg
also
world
like
is really, really cold,
I
isn't it?
think I always had like my thing with like the Volga and like is the princes get aren't all of them are killed, right?
Yeah, but the
Or
kings aren't.
oh, okay.
I don't think
Uh,
it's all of them. I think there's just a bunch of them because then they like were hinting that there were princesses as well.
right.
Yeah, so I don't know. But anywho, overall, very happy that we finally have the book in our
Hmm.
hands.
Waited so
Can't
long
wait
for it.
to read it all again, to go through everything a little bit more in depth with everybody, and to hear Lauren's reactions now that you and I, Maggie, have had a chance to sort of talk. I'm really excited for her to finally reach the end. I think she's like three-fourths of the way done, I think.
Yeah, she's been like sitting at like 60%, I would bet. She's gonna get
Hmm.
there.
I'm very excited. So
I know.
happy. Can't wait for more from Miss Mass, but I know we'll have to wait some time, but hopefully she has already started on book 6 of ACOTAR and that she's not at sitting at ground zero.
Ugh, we have got
I
some
hope,
stuff done.
I hope that it'll be, we'll have some more information maybe towards the end of this year for what's coming for 2025, and hopefully it will be released next year because I don't think there's a date yet, is there?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
So
So here's to hoping.
patience is a virtue.
Yep, I hope everybody enjoyed the book as much as we did. If you are new here, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, tell us your thoughts. Um, it has just been a wild ride this week.
I
Nothing but
know.
Crescent City everywhere.
I'm just I think I still need like time to decompress from it, but
A little bit. Yeah,
I'm ready for like I'll be ready for information to like catch the stuff I didn't before. And I
yeah.
feel like I'm
And
hopeful.
yeah, I don't know. And it's not even that I'm like so emotionally damaged I don't think I can read another book. I just there is this book is so information dense. There's so much. Don't feel like I'm ready to move on from it because I feel like we
Me
haven't
either.
processed all of this stuff. And it's not that I'm emotionally damaged, it's that I'm still trying to connect all the pieces and the things in my head from all
Hmm.
the information. Um, but we'll be moving on soon. And in a couple weeks, when we release our next episode with Lauren, we will have our first book club book where we'll all sit and we'll read it together and we can discuss as we go through it. We'll have some check-ins. It'll be great. So we're so excited to do that with everybody. For now,
Enjoy your reads.
yep, enjoy your
Just
reads. Hope you enjoyed Crescent City. Um, Let us know
if you
what you
have
think.
anything you picked up on that we missed or that like maybe you thought something different, let us know.
Yeah, definitely, definitely let us know. Um, that way we'll have some stuff to talk about with Lauren. Maybe send us your questions, your thoughts, your feelings about the series, and we will talk about them next week with Lauren when she is able to chat with us. But until then, hope you all have a really great week. See you later.